Welcome to the Computer Repair Podcast, episode number 316, Zorus. This is our live show where we discuss the ins and outs of running your computer repair business. Our show today is brought to you by Instant House Call, remote support that is easy for you and your customers to use. This is a must-have tool with features like on-demand for your break-fix customers and unattended for managed services. You can do automatic repairs with the auto repair built-in software, and it will save you time and money when you are supporting your customers. Check it out for a free trial. Use the offer code PODNUTS. And also by FreshBooks, the simple pain-free invoicing solution for freelancers and small business owners. For a 30-day free trial, just go to freshbooks.com/podnuts. Enter podnuts in the How Did You Hear About Us section. Let me introduce the co-hosts. We have John Dubinsky from the Maven Group. John, how you doing?
Every day's perfection, Jeff.
Awesome to have you. And also we have John Fazio from Zorus. John, how you doing?
Very good. Thanks for having me on, guys.
No problem. And it's going to be a little confusing because I got two Johns. So when I call out John, nobody's going to know who I'm talking to. And also we have Greg Gage from Zorus. Greg, how you doing?
How's it going?
Good to have you. And on the road, somewhere in parts unknown, we have Paco LeBron from Prodigy Techs. How you doing, Paco?
Oh, you know, better than good, better than Mo, flying down Michigan on 196, trying to get back to Chicago.
Nice. Well, you have a good trip home, man. All right, we're going to go into our tips and stories section. So, John, what do you got for us this week?
Well, I've seemed like I've been busier than a pit bull in some sort of meat shop or something, or a butcher shop this week, so I haven't been able to keep up with anything. So I'll keep these nice and short this week, Jeff. So for those of you not on the video, that was funny, Jeff. Thanks. Oh, sorry. So first link in the chat is a link I'm going to title the Grim Reaper Google. It has a list of every software feature that Google has ever killed. And I was kind of surprised because it's over 145 different products, and I didn't realize that the count was that quite high. But I thought it was just an interesting read. So if you want to look at that, give that a click. The other one in my next link is just sort of another list of worthless information, or perhaps a gem in the rough, depending on how you use it. But it's a list of global website monitoring software by market, and the list is updated in 2019. So this has everything in it from RMMs to any sort of monitoring software. So it might be a list that might just bring some services to light that you've never heard of before, or it might just be a total waste of time, but I'll let you decide that as you review it. I did find some things on there that I had never heard of before, so I thought it was of value, and that's why I'm going to paste it in there. The next one is we got a little competition from another national player. It looks like Konica Minolta in the printer multifunction area is jumping in to crush rival MSPs with its own service. So it's an interesting read, and I'm sure we'll get about as much competition from them as we do from the Geek Squad, but we wish them luck. So, and last but not least, our friend Joe K sent over a network discovery tool, and this really fits in well with a lot of the questions in the CRP secret group. A lot of people are asking how to get started with a new client, and a good network discovery tool is a great place to start. I've brought to the show before that I use a scanner from SoftPerfect called SoftPerfect Network Scanner that works really well. Joe's recommendation is by a company called Slithris, S-L-I-T-H-E-R-I-S, Network Discovery. It has some pretty cool features. It's free for network discovery on 50 devices, but what I found pretty unique about it is it actually does a lot more identification than just maybe a MAC identifier. It will actually try to tell you the year, the age of the product, you know, all this cool stuff. The device type even more in depth, so it really takes it to the limit as far as network discovery goes, from a simple and what can be a portable tool. So I'll leave those links in there too, and that's all I got this week, Jeff.
Awesome as usual. Thank you, John. And Paco, do you have something from the road?
Yeah, I got a good story. So it's one of those where make sure you, as you are doing any type of custom builds or anything of that sort of deal, that you verify your parts are valid and compatible with each other. Basically, what ended up happening to me was I was tasked to build a couple custom rack servers, and my client ended up sourcing the parts. So it's essentially they build these machines before. They're a video encoding type company, so doing live stream and things like that. So they build these boxes before, but they just don't have the manpower because they're essentially engineers putting the boxes together, and they wanted to have a little bit better use of their time. So they ended up outsourcing it to us, and they ended up starting to try out the i9 on the motherboards that they had before. Well, on paper, it said that the motherboards did support the i9, but after me and Andres Quiros over at Green Ink put these boxes together to test out, the one i7 worked great, but the i9 gave no video. And after a couple hours of trying to figure out what the heck is going on, it turns out that it needed a BIOS update from 1.1 to 1.5 to support the i9. So not only did we have to rebuild the builds with the i7 in each individual PC, upgrade them to the i9 BIOS update, throw the i9s back in the machine to then go ahead and install and do the run-in test and all that sort of stuff. So make sure you source your parts right and verify the updates that are going to work.
Yeah, that's a good lesson. I think there's always been two camps when it comes to updating the BIOS, and half the people will say never update the BIOS, and the other half will say always update it. And I'm going to tell you from experience, when you're building a new build, you absolutely 100% want to update the BIOS, because usually it'll only get to a certain point anyways where they stop really kind of supporting it. So they'll get it to a point where it's stable for most systems, and that's where you want it at. You don't want to have to go back to a customer and say, hey, let me come back in and reflash the BIOS. You don't want to have that situation. So good story, Paco. Good to hear. I'm glad it worked out too. All right, so let's go over to John Fazio. And
Yes.
do you have a tip or story for us that we could learn from this week?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm definitely coming in on the sales side, and my background, recently is actually in sales training. So when I think about, what kind of things can help businesses, especially IT businesses, that it really comes back down to the communication and the conversations you're having with people. I mean, just something as simple as this, where you're networking with individuals that are like-minded, that got to get it, and not dismissing things like local chambers, local BNIs. There seems, and in my previous life, that's essentially how I kind of build up my company, is just that, where I'm going out there and having one-on-one conversations with people. So, the actual conversation, what you're doing, is a lot larger of a conversation here, but the thought pattern is to get out there, get in front of people, have actual one-on-one communication with them. And that's going to bypass a lot of what this, I guess, your typical marketing is going to be. Those email blasts, those banners that are on things like websites. When you can get in front of somebody and you can have an actual conversation with them, your credit is that much more pushed forward. So I guess the lesson is just don't forget about the conversation.
That is excellent advice, and something that we all need to be reminded of. So very good.
And I want to take that back to the CRP group too, because we were just there's some posting in there just talking about your 30-second elevator pitch, which I think melds right into John's perfect tip as well. As if you're going to be getting in front of those people, which is absolutely the truth, make sure you have your 30-second pitch down so that when they ask you what you do, you're not stumbling over that. So you can talk with some confidence and start that conversation rolling right away.
Yeah, and that's just it too, that, how you're communicating with certain people and what you're saying. And we talk about things like buzzwords and what's going to trigger and what's going to not. At the end of the day, you're asking questions to try to figure out where the possible holes are, either with their current IT or with the current company that they're using. So it really goes back to just having those one-on-one conversations. But you're absolutely right. Communicating with somebody in itself is an art form.
Absolutely. All right, and Greg, I'm going to bring it over to you. Do you have anything any tip or story that you'd like to share with us?
So it's kind of both. So during my time as head of R&D at Datto, I had a whole bunch of different big monitors around my desk, really high resolution. I didn't realize how much damage it was doing to my eyes. So I found this utility called Flux. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of it, but you can download it for free. It's freeware. And it just adjusts your screen's colors to a more orange spectrum, takes the blue out as the sun goes down, and it prevents eye damage. So it's just a good little utility to grab.
Nice. Yeah, because there's a lot of us that spend a lot of time in front of the screens, and I think that's one of the things we never think about is what kind of damage is it doing, even though we can't necessarily see it. And I tell people all the time that things will rear their heads, especially when you get older.
Yeah.
What you can get away with now is not what you can get away with once you pass a certain point. I just put it that way, right, John?
Yes, sir. Absolutely. I'm not sure why you're bringing my name up directly, but I think you're probably talking to Fazio because from now on, I'm just going by sir for the rest of the show. And I'll have a link to Flux in the show notes too.
Awesome. That's a great tip.
Nice.
All right. So my personal tip is I have been using for backing up customers' machines and transferring the data from my bench computer, spinning hard drive, Little Western Digital, 1 terabyte hard drive. No big deal. It works fine. Albeit it's a USB 3, it's still somewhat slow. It's obviously spinning media, and it can only write so fast. So I decided to buy I just needed a little 500 gig just to move, and my customers' data is anywhere from 20 gigs all the way up to probably 300, 350, especially on the residential side. It seems like people keep a lot of stuff, and I'm not going to sit there and go through it and figure out what they need or don't need. There's certain things I look at and say they don't need that, and I just get rid of it. And I have yet to hear one customer go, where did that thing go? No, it doesn't happen. But anyways, so I bought a Samsung TL5 500 gigabyte external hard drive. And the other reason I did this is because some of the ultralights that I'm starting to get as far as laptop computers, they don't have, and I had a Dell XPS in here, they don't have a USB port. It's a Type-C. So I'm sitting here scrambling because for whatever reason, I don't know. I don't run into this a whole lot, so I didn't have any adapters. So I had to go to my son who had a Samsung S8, and I go, dude, I said, you got one of those adapters that, can switch from USB to Type-C? Because I need to transfer their data back to their computer. And so he gave me that. Since then, I bought a couple of external adapters. They're fairly inexpensive, but I wanted a hard drive that was basically Type-C, but I could use it either or, Type-C or USB 3. And it's a ton faster than the spinning media, so it works really well. And it's nice and small. You can really throw it in your pocket, backpack, whatever you have, and carry it around with you. Keep your tools on there, all that kind of stuff. And I don't know. John and I were talking about this before. I don't know how tough it is. Maybe if I dropped it on the ground, maybe something would happen. But nothing's moving in there. So even if it gets a little nick on the case, it's probably still going to be fine. And they're not real expensive either. Not as expensive as you would think. Now, a terabyte one was a little more than what I wanted to spend, but 500 gigs. And some people might even be able to do less than that. You do a 250 or something like that. But
and you got the WD?
What's that?
You got the Western Digital?
No, Samsung TL5.
Samsung. I know
Yep.
SanDisk does have a hardened one.
Yes.
Too, for a similar price too.
I figured you're going to put that in the show notes there. Both.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right, let's take a quick break, and then let's get into our main topic with our special guest today. Right now, we're going to talk about TechCon Unplugged, September 20th through the 22nd, 2019. We're in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Yes, John's very own backyard, John Dubinsky. Here's what you're going to get. You're going to get all your meals and snacks at the event, including a dinner at Dave & Buster's where we can all hang out. You can play some games if you want, and we can talk shop or personal lives or whatever it is you want to do. But the whole point of this particular convention is to keep everybody together, hanging out, learning from each other, and that is where we feel the value of these types of events are. So we're going to have that good, wholesome IT content as we normally do. I've got a great committee that's helping put this stuff together, and we had some knockdown, drag-out fights, but everything's working out really good, and we're kind of up with some good topics. We've got some community-invested vendors that are a part of this, and they're all in, and I'm so excited to have them a part of this so that they can come and talk to you. And again, like John Fazio was talking about, you basically are going to be able to meet people, shake their hands, talk to them, see eye to eye, and kind of talk about some things that's going to help your business and you're going to be able to help them to support you in your business, and that way everybody wins. So that's what we are striving for, and that's what it's going to be. So anyways, go to techconunplugged.com. Tickets are $199. Again, that's going to cover all your meals and everything, and basically it's going to be a blast of a time. Get away from your business, learn something, go home and have some good content that you can basically take in your business and further your business along. Again, a lot of people out there are probably feel like they're out there on an island by themselves. And the reality is, when somebody comes up with something that says, man, I know nobody else in the world is dealing with this. No, there's a lot of us out there who go, yeah, been there, done that. No big deal. Here's what you do to get through. So techconunplugged.com. Be there or be square.
Ah, we got to come up with a different saying right there.
Showing my age. I don't know why I say that, because that's even before my time. Anyways, all right, let's get started. So today we're talking with a couple people, Greg and John from Zorus, and it's basically enterprise class cybersecurity, which that in itself sounds pretty darn impressive. Everybody loves to hear about, hey, what can I do to protect myself? What can I do to protect my customers? And this is what we're going to find out. So what I want to do is, I think I'm going to start with John. And why don't you go ahead and give us a background story of basically where you came from and how you got to Zorus. That a fair question?
Yeah. I mean, it's a fair question. It's a sort of a long answer. I've done multiple things in my past. I started actually with education, and then I went to broadcasting. I was in radio for a few years in the marketing side, and then I started selling advertising. And then I ended up actually through just some connections that I had through radio. I was introduced to a gentleman that was working at Datto. So I jumped into the tech company. I was the 45th hire at the time. And, it was one of those opportunities that you don't really get a lot of times in life, where you can jump into a company that is just about to kind of hit that skyrocket, and you get to see where it was and where it came from. So I was with Datto for about three and a half years. Ended up leaving there and doing a few other things. I went into VoIP for a little bit. I did finance for a bit. And then I actually went and started working for Sandler Training. So I was doing sales training, kind of understanding all the stuff that I had kind of jumped into in the past when it came to sales in itself, kind of understanding the management side, building teams, kind of that behind the scenes stuff that you don't typically kind of understand. And then I kind of had a choice meeting with Naj last year. It was just a lunch. We hadn't actually talked to each other for a while. Ended up sitting down, and he said, this is what's going on. Me and Greg got together. We're creating this company. We have this product. We have some ideas that are going to, sort of change the game. And we're interested in having you come on. And, for me, I'm one of those people that love taking something, of nothing and just making it as much as you can. And I knew that between Greg and Naj, the three of us all had the same idea of what we wanted to do. And, I actually love my job at Sandler, but it was just an opportunity that I knew I had to take. So I jumped on last year in September, and just been kind of jumping on or flying on the ship like the rest of us.
That is a great origin story. Love to hear those types of things. Sounds like you bring a lot to the table with your experiences in all the different things that you've done. So that's really cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, Greg. So kind of give us a background story, basically where you got started in tech and how you came to, I guess, basically start Zorus, and and we'll go from there.
So I am a self-taught software engineer. I've been doing this since I was 5 or 6 years old. Started with Apple Basic on an Apple IIe and worked my way up to C++, C#, and everything else. And over the years, I started a couple businesses that were very similar to MSPs when I was younger. And I would cater to a couple businesses and some residential people around me in the area. Eventually, I heard about Datto because Austin was actually a friend of mine from high school, and he offered me a job, and I came on board as the original lead engineer. effectively the CTO at the time. It was very small then. And everything was completely broken. Nothing worked. And people were returning it left and right. So I basically had to jump in and fix everything. I got as much of it as I could going, and eventually me and Austin had a little fight. I ended up leaving Datto and starting another company, and not even worth talking about that one. That one didn't go very far. But Austin signed up for my my teaser page for that website, or for that company. And I ended up getting his IP address and using a skill set that I developed when I was younger to get into his home network through one of his exposed security cameras. Basically, I sent him a list of his passwords and got a job there again. Ended up as the head of R&D, built out all of Datto's individual backup agents, their HIR process, the BMR, everything that you guys have used. If you use Datto, I had some hand in at some point. Ended up leaving again. Austin suggested I start up Zorus based on a need he saw in the market that he couldn't address with Datto's resources, and he thought I could handle it. And that original idea was actually something much different than what it is now. The original idea was actually a UTM in the cloud, which I'll come back to some point during the show. But we ended up pivoting to a secure web gateway service that is basically just a better way to do it than the DNS. And we'll just leave it at that for now.
Okay, that is awesome. That's again another great story. It sounds like you've got the chops out there to, you know, really do what you do. You know, not a lot of people can go, hey, I'm, you know, a self-taught engineer. That's awesome to hear. That
hang on a second, Jeff. I got to make myself a note to change all my passwords after this show.
No kidding. Wait a minute.
That's why there's a cybersecurity company. If I can get in there, I can keep people out, right?
Right.
So, and that's good, because obviously there are holes and flaws in everything that we have on our networks, whether in home, in businesses, wherever on the internet. There's going to be those flaws. And obviously, it just takes a person to basically figure out how to get through that particular flaw. And as things are being updated and changed all the time, that changes. So let's go ahead and move into basically what is Zorus and what can it do for the MSP IT consultants out there. I can't believe I just said MSP. What the heck is wrong?
I'll throw the tech side to Greg, and then I'll jump in the sales side afterwards. But
so Zorus basically right now is a secure web gateway that operates through an evolved form of proxy servers. So we took the old proxy servers that, you know, from late 80s and 90s, and we made them actually work with everything that's out there now. The Web 2.0 stuff, all the web sockets, all of that. And we got it so it works very quickly. There's no huge latency drop. We wanted to make sure we maintained your quality of service. And we brought in a whole bunch of licensed and free, and basically a whole bunch of different threat intelligence sources, and converged them and fed them into a proprietary content filtering system that uses the proxies as an input point. So basically, you install our agent on your machine, and the agent actually diverts the packets down at the kernel level up to our service. So it doesn't matter if an application supports proxying or not. We're doing it so low level that the programs don't even know you're there. So we're able to capture literally every bit of traffic that goes through the system, which gives you a much, much deeper control over what's actually flowing from, you know, point A to point B over the internet. Whereas with a DNS service, which is what most of our competitors are peddling, you really don't get that granularity. You can basically see the base domain, but not any of the URL beyond it, and you don't get any of the content going over the line. So we wanted to give you a much, much heavier secure gateway than what is out there currently.
That is, you know what? And I actually understood that. So that's pretty cool. I like that, because you know, again, we're all trying to protect ourselves, and if you can do that in a way where there's little to no latency, that speaks volumes, because that's usually what people complain about.
It was hard, trust me.
Yeah, I believe it. All right, John. So from your standpoint on the sales side of Zorus, give us your pitch. I mean, give us your side.
So, the bottom line is you want to have the ability to, as we said, have a conversation with your client. So not only is the Archon, which is the product that we have, is security. So the initial conversation is just that. We want to put an extra level of security, or we want to put the first level of security. Everything is being monitored at that point. Again, HTTP and HTTPS traffic. So at that point, security is there. But then on the flip side, you have this other side of the conversation with this content filtering. So now, since you can see everything, now you could say, well, listen, I want my marketing department to be able to use Facebook, but I don't need my salespeople on playing Facebook games. So we're going to limit Facebook games, to the sales side. Or, I kind of want to find out what Joe's doing during the day. So now everything's there. So what we typically say is for something like, the logs, you run this service for a little bit, you talk about security, and then you come back and say, well, here's what's going on in your network. Once they realize that, hey, listen, most of my people are on Facebook, I didn't realize, or I can't believe that they're actually on Indeed, what's going on there? Now you could say, well, let's do something about that too. The beauty about, Archon, and the beauty about having a channel-only company is the fact that you guys can turn that over however you want. So the opportunity to have multiple touch points, multiple conversations, and multiple services for us all in one price, it just gives you that much more, kind of the sizzle that you can now put out to your client. Because I think the bottom line is that I think MSPs worry about the fact that they spend, or they're charging their clients money, and they're not really sure if their clients understand what they're getting. I think you had touched on that a little bit in the beginning. So having something like the logs, where we're going to show you either on a weekly or daily or whatever basis what exactly is going on, you have that ability to keep that touch point there. So I just saw all those kind of different levels that we can hand off, and that was the beauty of having this one product with all these other applications that come along with it.
Very good. So let's talk a little bit, because and Greg, you brought this up, and that is the difference between DNS filtering versus proxy filtering. What are the pros and cons? Because obviously there's many different ways to do things, and it sounds like you guys have hit upon something that is very beneficial to the end user.
Yeah, it became pretty apparent why no one else did it this way very early on. I almost regretted it, but we eventually knocked out the big problems. The biggest difference, I'd say, is with DNS filtering, you don't have to worry about latency. You don't have to worry about throughput, because you're not sending the data up. You're just asking for the IP address for a particular endpoint. So all they're doing is saying, I want Facebook.com. They say, this is our categorization for Facebook.com. This is blocked or not. But if you go to some particular Facebook profile that is more about violence, you don't get that granularity. All you get is that base domain categorization. So we wanted to have something that had a bit more granularity, a bit more control. And so we built this out so that no matter where you go on the internet, we get all of the data. We know exactly what's going on. If a website is compromised, for example, something that normally is fine and would be categorized as safe, we'd see content that is not normal coming over the line that may have malware references or something else. And we'd immediately say, hey, that's not right. And we'd block it off the bat. So it's almost like a secure web gateway 0-day in a way. It allows you to block 0 days situations wherein a site might have gotten compromised, its DNS rerouted somewhere else, and we're able to deal with that, whereas the other services can't. So it's just a lot more granular. We're also able to log everything, which is something that the DNS services, they give you, they ask for google.com, but you don't get this user at this time asks for this exact URL. You don't get all of that granularity. You don't get to see like which ones are AJAX requests and everything else. So you get a lot of control over your network with this tool versus the DNS one. So I'd say that's pretty much the biggest overall difference.
Okay. That was yeah, that was good. So that makes sense, because obviously, and I think John, you alluded to this a little bit earlier too. The difference is if you have this more granular control, you basically have, you can block Facebook via content filtering with DNS, but you're not going to maybe block a certain portion of Facebook, whether it be games or things like that. And sounds like you can do some of those types of things. Yeah, it almost does sound like really a UTM, in the cloud.
Yeah, same kind of thing with websites like YouTube, like WordPress, where there's certain, there's great sites on YouTube, but there's also not. So what we have is a phrase-based, which means that it's going to actually text mine the page. And if you look at things like guns or violence or fighting, what it'll actually do is it'll look at the page and see if those words are there, and then it'll block it that way. So there's just, again, having that granularity just gives you that much more control. And those are sort of the three phrases that we kind of talk about is it's see, control, protect, which is see everything, control everything, protect it. So those are kind of the mantras that we throw out there.
I love that see, control, and protect. I mean, I don't know if I stole that from you or not, but literally, I got to jump on the bandwagon here, and I'll try to digress this as short as I can, because every time Paco and I start talking about Zorus, we get excited, because I would suggest over the past couple months, Paco and I have been punching each other in the face literally about see it, control it, and protect it, because everything is going back to compliance with integrity and confidentiality and availability, and I know that's a whole lot of buzzwords, but really how to drive it down to the simplistic level of us as managing or being the MSP, being able to see what's happening, being able to control what's happening, and thus protect our customers. And where Zorus kind of steps in and provides that is just what Greg said. It's with the Archon agent on a PC. Even if you have the Archon agent set to do nothing, just to monitor, it is giving you that see it level a lot better than any other product based on every individual endpoint, meaning from category to URL to time of day to if that would have been blocked, or even if you do some keywords like John was saying, it's just immediately puts right in front of you in a reportable form everything that's happening, so you can see it. Whereas with like a lot of UTMs, you might have to pull that out, or even some of the reporting in a lot of UTMs, you might have to say, you might get a MAC address report, like this MAC address did this about this time of day. So then you got to maybe grab that MAC and bring it over to your RMM and say, okay, what PCM has this MAC address so I can see what it did. And then maybe you'll have some confusion there as well, because maybe they were on the Ethernet connection at one time, but when they did this, they were in the conference room on their wireless connection. That doesn't matter with the Zorus. Or if the endpoint leaves, a laptop leaves, it's not behind your UTM, so it doesn't have to be controlled by those rules. You don't have to be connected to a VPN proxy in or a VPN connect in to the UTM device in order to filter through that device to be controlled by the rules. So the thing I really like about Zorus is all the features it brings. We talked about it blocks malware, does that gateway AV that your UTM would do, SSL inspection that your UTM would do, all the stuff that DNS filtering does, page risk, content filtering, brings in application filtering and other stuff like that. But then on top of that, it's visibility, whether it's behind your UTM or on your network or not. So they can take that laptop home or on a guest network, and they'll still have all those rules, and you can see it no matter what. There's not any question to whether they did it or not.
Excellent.
That was good. Yeah, thanks, John.
Okay, real good. Paco, did you want to say something?
No, I mean, kind of what John had said pretty much is that we were at this specific weekend, we were actually going through our stack and just understanding those three, specifically those three components is, if we can see it, if we can control it, if we can protect it, that's how it's included in the stack. And Zorus, with all that it has with the capabilities, makes us very excited, because now we actually feel like we have some type of control on a service that we are having our clients pay for, right? And trying to do our best diligence to protect them.
Very good. I think this is one of the things that people look for to get excited about something in IT. That's not always a normal thing.
That's absolutely true.
Well, just like Greg said, this isn't easy. It's just like a lot of the times when you toss a UTM in, you're going to have a battle at the beginning, because your rule set might be really tight. You might block some pages you don't want. You might run into some sites that are doing some things weird. I don't want to digress too much into the technical terms because I'll get lost too, but, like with SSL pinning and stuff like that. So the great thing about, I've run into that too, like even with my RMM and my remote access, when during the, this phase where we're testing out Zorus, literally that did not work at all. So there were a couple of versions of Zorus that came out after that fixed some of the issues. And then the great thing about it, I just put a ticket in with the team over at Zorus, and they jumped right in. I contacted my RMM, got some information from them, handed it off to Zorus. Zorus says, "Hey, give us a little bit." And sooner or later, we had a solution. I think it was like within a day, where now Zorus works perfectly with what with my RMM and all that kind of stuff. So, you have to, with any kind of tool that you're doing with this, you're trying to secure everything and make it, but you have to work with what other vendors have implemented on their security stack with their pinning or their SSL, which might be different. So, the idea is that when you run into trouble, there's sort of a team there to help you, and they understand, because that's just the nature of what we're doing. Because it's the same things you run into with a UTM device. Why are you blocking this site, or why is this site blocked now, or especially with things like with IPD, intrusion prevention or detection. A lot of times, what worked last week, all of a sudden, your firewall is saying, "Hey, this looks suspicious this week, so I'm going to temporarily block it." So, it's that little bit of a fight, but and that was even before I was quote unquote signed up as a partner. That was my trial phase when they jumped on and jumped right in and took care of me. So that was great.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, John. The SSL bypass stuff, that's pretty much the big thing with us, because we have all of these people who basically are competitors. Most of them take a lackadaisical approach to SSL inspection. Rather than have to get people calling in complaining about that stuff happening, they would rather just kick down the security a couple levels so that you guys don't have any of those roadblocks to begin with. Now, from my perspective, that's a poor way to do things. I think we should have full security, and then we slowly work towards making sure everything works. And there's very few applications realistically that use SSL pinning. It's usually stuff like banks, your remote access tools, things you don't want people getting in the middle of with a man in the middle tool and, taking advantage of you. So we're basically building a giant list of presets for our SSL bypass. That's all channel software and common stuff like TeamViewer and everything else. And you basically just add that to your policy right when you get in there, and you're just good to go. I know, John, you and I worked on a couple of them. Grammarly was one, and we got all that going for you. So if you've run anything else, obviously let us know. But I'm glad we were able to get it working so well for you.
Yeah, the great thing about it is now what I'm doing and behind the scenes is both Paco and I have on and off during our work weeks where we run the agent on our machines so that we're kind of trying to experience that real world thing that our end users might do it once we start going live. So when we run into a problem, what we've been doing is we kind of make a note of that, and then we might poke the vendor to say, "Hey, if we're using a firewall, whatever, what would need to be whitelisted?" And we're sort of gathering that information to set our ball up and then throw to you guys to say, "Here's what we needed to whitelist." It'd be interesting to say, because you guys have asked for that feedback from us, to say like, well, here's EagleSoft, which is a dental application, and they might have some payment systems or something behind the scenes that don't work great with Zorus now because they're doing whatever they do. So we might need to poke those holes in the quote unquote Zorus firewall to make those things work. And then eventually there's, like Greg said, just a preset where you just say, "Hey, here's a drop-down list. I use EagleSoft, choose EagleSoft." Or in the big scheme, what we've talked about is like you might just choose that you're in the dental or medical field, and it's already pre-done for you.
Yep.
From a generality. So that's pretty sweet, because that just makes it easy for guys like us in the trenches to say, "Oh, I'm a dentist." Beep. So it's already accommodated all that kind of cool stuff.
Yeah, that was really what we were aiming for. We wanted you guys to be able to set this stuff up in like 5 minutes. And I know you probably got that spiel on the phone from John. We can deploy in 5 minutes, that whole thing. That was really our goal. We wanted to be an IT tool with that complexity level, but with the ease of use of a consumer tool. So we wanted to make it as dead simple for you guys to deploy this to a user in like 10 minutes flat as we could.
That's good, because, man, there are so many things out there that take such a big learning curve to try to figure out and know exactly, okay, how much is too much. And I think we've kind of talked about it here where, and I'm with you guys, I feel that you should protect everything that you possibly can, and the people that want to get on Facebook can just suck it and they don't have to worry about it. We'll open that stuff up as needed. And so if they got to cry and complain a little bit, it's like you can cry and complain, or we can deal with the problem down the road when something really bad happens to your network and you have compromised computers because you didn't take just a tiny step that would help you in that right direction.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So obviously there's, I mean, John, from your standpoint, John Fazio, if from your standpoint, what other things have we not talked about so far that Zorus can do for us, in our businesses?
Yeah, so I mean, it's kind of listening to the individual things that we have going on here. So John brought up a great point as far as the remote users. So now everybody that's outside the network is still getting those permissions. We actually have the ability to have, say, a CEO turn on or off the proxy if they wanted to. So say, for instance, you have an MS or you have a client that wants to have full control. You can actually give them that ability. So, we, as just from the setup itself being quick and easy, the ability to even have those policies go across the board. So say you wanted to have, say you have a set of law firms for your clients, you can actually have those, the content filtering already set up for those and send those policies right over. So, you got to kind of think about Zorus is built from people that understand the MSP world. And now we just want to build the company itself, from the ground up with not only you guys giving us the feedback, but making sure that product works as easy as possible. Again, at the end of the day, for me, it's you want to make sure you have a conversation that you can talk to your clients about, features, benefits, something that you can get them excited about. You want to have a product that's going to work, that you don't really have to have that much interaction with. And at the end of the day, you want to make some money off of it. So we figure if we can hit those 3 marks, we're doing something right.
I like that. Now, as far as giving the clients control, I think that's a super bad idea. Because John,
we all have clientillas or
yeah, it's John. We talk about this often. And what did you tell one of your orthodontists at one point when they wanted to kind of delve in and do their own IT work?
You said I can't swear on the show, Jeff. So
give us a clean version.
I can't remember the direct quote you're asking for, but there's been several times. It just goes back to that whole shadow IT. I don't fix my own damn teeth, Doc. You just let me take care of the
There
IT.
you go.
Yeah.
There
So
yep,
that
good.
sort of thing.
Yeah. So, but yeah, again, and I know we talk about things and we try to come from a hard standpoint. The reality is, at the end of the day, the customer is going to want what the customer wants. And as long as they're willing to pay the bill and pay the consequences for when things do happen, because they have that type of control, they flipped the wrong switch, they did something, and we've got to come in and fix it. That's fine as long as they're all right with that. To me, I would rather be more intelligent and just go, I don't know nothing about this. You do what you do, I'll do what I do. But yeah, so it's always good. You got to have those features, and I get it. It's just kind of frustrating sometimes because I don't want to give anybody the power. So, all right. Okay.
Well,
so,
the guys from Zorus and actually touting their horn too, because there is something they did just rolled out too. And I'll bring this a little bit. It's not just the product they do. They do have a nice little resource center, which I think Pulseway also had something like this too, which was kind of nice. But it's kind of what I want to say, a quick start guide that takes all the. There's no ramp up work for you because they already have the marketing materials in there for you ready to go. Some video. I mean, all the stuff you would need to do to introduce this to your end user is already done. So, that's the way. It's like the quick start guide. A lot of people or a lot of companies claim to do this, but maybe it's just some slick that was from 2013 or something like that they say. So the nice thing is that what's in their resource center are literally resources, and the way that it's presented, it's something that your end user, like if you were going to present this to a doc, they could actually grasp and understand, or it's a good way to get in front of them.
We have that conversation in-house too, where, resources, clearly it's a startup company, so those resources are low. And where do we put our concentration? And it goes back to, we want to give you guys as much resources as we can. So do we spend the money on the marketing to the MSPs itself, or do we spend the money on giving you guys the resources to turn over the marketing to your end user? At the end of the day, I'd rather give you the resources. Like, I can have a conversation with you, but to turn this technology over to your clients, it's going to be a different conversation. So I'd much rather spend the time and money on giving you guys the resources you can to flip this over, as opposed to, again, hitting the web stuff or hitting the marketing where it comes to just this global stuff. I'd rather have a conversation with you at that point.
Very good.
But I appreciate you bringing up the Resource Center. It took a while to get that going, but that was certainly something that we wanted to push out as quickly as possible. And this is something we can add on to. So any other marketing that we have is going to go to that. And then we have this sort of social media aspect of it too, where we have our Twitter feed, and we're trying to utilize, our MSP social medias about that great way to get information out there between everybody. So kind of bringing that community together as much as we can too.
Very excellent. All right, let's take another quick break, and we'll come back and continue this conversation. Our show today is brought to you by FreshBooks. You remember when you started your small business? It was no small feat. It took a lot of late nights, early mornings, and the occasional all-nighter. Bottom line, you've been insanely busy ever since. So why not make things a little easier? Well, our friends at FreshBooks have the solution. FreshBooks invoicing and accounting software is designed specifically for small business owners. It's simple, intuitive, and keeps you way more organized than a dusty shoebox filled with crumpled receipts. Most of you are probably too young to actually remember that. But you can create and send professional-looking invoices in 30 seconds and then get them paid 2 times faster with automated online payments. Who doesn't want to get paid faster? We all want to get paid faster. File expenses even quicker and keep them perfectly organized for tax time. Yep, the taxes are right around the corner, and you got to have all your ducks in a row. I don't know where that saying comes from either. And the best part, FreshBooks grows alongside your business, so you always have the tools you need when you need them, without ever having to learn the ins and outs of accounting. And I would rather stick a fork in my eye than learn anything about accounting. Join the 24 million people who've used FreshBooks. Try it free for 30 days. No catch and no credit card required. Go to freshbooks.com/podnuts and enter podnuts in the How Did You Hear About Us section to get started. Can't beat that deal. Just go over there now. All right. So getting back into the conversation. So John Dubinsky, let me ask you a question.
Yes, sir.
So who discovered, is this one of your things that you did you discover Zorus as you're, constantly looking for things on the internet, and what made you actually check them out?
It's a funny story. I was doing several things that I should not have been doing while driving.
Yeah, we've had this conversation before, John.
So anyways, I was leaving a customer, and I think I was just battling a UTM issue. And I was like, man, there's got to be a better solution. And in the past, I have looked for just what Greg talked about, a cloud UTM solution. And I think in our little Tech Brothers meetup that we have all talked about this before. So I think I was driving from one city to another and frustrated, and was on Reddit and literally put in cloud UTM. And it was some sort of discussion, and I believe Mr. Fazio here piped in and put in, hey, something to the effect that we're not exactly a cloud UTM solution, but we do this with proxy. If you're interested, our company is Zorus Tech or whatever, blah, blah, blah. So literally I went to the website, filled out the form, and I don't know, 15 minutes later in my drive, I was parked at a gas station talking to John on the phone, asking how, well, send me a demo, let's get started. So I mean, literally, that's how I found Zorus. So that's my little tip. And just from that responsiveness till now, I mean, it seems like I'm always saying about the vendors that we have on. But again, the channel focus and literally the desire for them to find out what's happening in our business and sort of provide a solution with their Archon agent, is really brought me in or enticed me. And I just want everybody to know that I'm the third, I was way back when, the 13th partner. So I will be known as number 13 moving on. So
Forever.
yes.
Number 13. Lucky number 13.
That is my lucky number, so it's all good.
That's good. That's good.
But yeah, so it was just great. It was kind of fortuitous. I was struggling with a problem, and all of a sudden, the good Lord delivered me Zorus. So from the heavens.
Now, you realize I'm going to have to go back and edit out the part where you talk about driving and texting and searching the internet and all that kind
Well,
of
that was the last time that ever happened, and then the last time that will ever happen again.
baloney. Oh my gosh, John.
So, to carry that on, so since that conversation, we brought up Zorus at one of our Tech Brothers meetup, and I think we've introduced Joe K and as well as you, Jeff, to the product. Paco and I kind of jumped on board, and we are still in the testing phase, and we are pushing that because we are very excited to sort of weave that into our stack, our security stack, as we continue to figure that out with John. I must have stolen that from you with see it, control it, and protect it. So
yeah,
now I feel bad that I need to probably send you a nickel every time I say it. But anyways, it's fitting that into our stack. We think that's going to be one of our primary components, sliding that right in the next to AV, maybe in non-compliance offices, actually using that in place of a UTM, where maybe that UTM protection is not needed, where we have a really good router with a stateful packet inspection firewall, or in instances where maybe the workforce is very mobile. So there's there's no disparate or no independent network to control that from. Instead of trying to set up VPNs for everybody to be controlled through a UTM, we do Zorus on all the mobile machines, and life is good because we're protected, because nobody ever hits the office, but we still have that thorough level of protection on all those devices. So that's where Zorus is fitting in with my security stack, or where it's going to fit in.
And I like a couple aspects of this, and that is channel friendly. That speaks volumes to this particular group, and me in particular, because we like somebody that's going to basically come alongside of us and help us out, and we want them to survive. So again, we shouldn't mind paying for things and making that happen, because you want that win-win scenario. But yeah, we like that channel friendly. And the other thing too is the constant iteration of bringing new things to the table, listening to the customer base, and figuring out what things need to be done. Greg, I think we were talking before the show a little bit, and you were coding something because Paco had asked for something, and you're sitting there coding away, and that's what coders do, right? They just can't stop.
Yeah. That's the nice thing about working with a small company too. If you call in and you say, I need this is the only way this is going to work for me, we'll make it happen. I mean, the past week has been trying to make Windows 10 not get mad about you trying to password the uninstaller. It's definitely a tricky process, but we finally got it working.
Nice.
It encrypts the password and everything, so they can't even do it if they're tech savvy. So
very cool. I like that. Yeah, again, we don't want our end users touching nothing.
Yeah, just do your job, for God's sake. Yeah, we'll take care of this.
It's interesting. The conversation I had originally had with Naj, even before coming on to Zorus, one of the things that we threw out there was sort of egoless. As in, like, when we look at the company itself, we know that we have, we're only a few people and we're in one building. So there's certainly restrictions there. And we want to throw out there that it's essentially an egoless company. Like, we're not here to try to boost ourselves up. We're here because we want to build a company. We want to give you guys the right product. So, that was one of the biggest things that pushed me towards the ability to work with Naj, the ability to work with Greg, is that we're egoless. Like, let's just get the job done. Let's see what you guys need. And we're not afraid of asking for help, which is, we want you guys to kick it around. We want you to come back and say, I like this, I don't like this. And this way, as we're building this company, we're doing it the right way.
I like that. Very good. All right. Let's see. So where are we at as far as, is there anything so far that we haven't touched on that either Greg or John would like to touch on as far as your product so far?
Well, I'll toss one more in there, and then maybe Greg and John can final up. But the other thing that they've just added, or maybe perfected even more, that's coming on, is just the reporting that's in the control panel. So even if you have Zorus installed in only an observation type mode, It's even without all the protections, what I'm finding just when I watch my own traffic, and sometimes, you know, you go to some bad sites and all that, just to add some stuff to the reporting. So it might be called out or questionable sites, because, you know, I want to see what maybe I'll be sending to my clients or what my customers might see, or just that activity report. And, you know, what I find, you know, is it really breaks out everything from a specific activity level to a general activity level. And what I mean by that is like the specific websites they go to, like google.com, and I'm looking at a report here right now, like bitdefender.com. You know, I'm looking through my list, intuit.com, and I just look at my list and I know that it's accurate because I know as the user looking in here that it's where I've been. And then I can see those couple bad sites that I put in too. But the other thing that it does on the other side is it kind of breaks it out by general category, like a games or education. So just on a quick look, you can see that, you know, maybe Barbara in the accounting department is spending a whole lot of time in the games category for some reason. So, you know, it's a, you know, without being quote unquote sneaky, you can be really sneaky, and it's just really easy to see that. You know, again, we go back to see it, that user is doing that. So I just find that valuable from the aspect that it was just so easy to do. You know, it's not like I have to dig through and do anything like that. It's just one click. I can set the date range, what happened in this range, or everything, and boom, it's just right there.
Yeah, that's a lot of information. That's awesome.
Exactly, quick and easy, and that's what we're looking for. And you know, if so happens, again, we use the example of them wanting to actually pull a report from one individual. They can call you up and say, I need to know what's going on. You could set your date range, sending out that log that has your logo on it. So the ability to, again, have that touch point with them is huge. And the logs themselves is the proof in the pudding. And we talk about, you know, once they really see what's there, then you could talk about how you're going to eliminate that by using the content filtering.
I had a question and I totally just lost it.
Sorry about that.
It's not you, it's me.
I'll jump in. I have something to say. So I did mention at the beginning of the call that originally our plan was to build a cloud-based UTM. And I don't know if anyone's heard of My Digital Shield or OmniNet or whatever they're called now. I tried out their product back when I was starting the company. It did work, but there were some latency issues, some speed issues, and I thought, hey, I can do this and I can make it work at full speed. So originally our product, and it still exists, the prototype, everything is there, did everything. It had a full IPS, it had layer 7 inspection, all the different layers of filtering, layer 3, layer 4, you had everything. And we ended up kind of backtracking because we were, at the time, I was funding the entire company. We've since raised money, but we want to get enough traction with our current product. But probably end of this year, early next year, we're going to be launching that product again, which currently is codenamed Primus. Anyone who comes on from this show and ends up as a customer, we will be giving all of our customers free beta access to that product. You will be allowed to resell it. It's completely up to you. And that'll be probably quarter four this year or quarter 1 next year. So. Nice.
Very cool.
And we've been able to achieve, currently, we've got about 2 gigabit throughput. So no slowdowns unless you're over 2 gigabit.
Okay. Wow. That's good.
I guess I can, I think 2 gig would be okay.
I can provide.
I get through that. I get.
First world problems.
About 40 just to cover all the bases, but for now, yeah.
Pac, are you trying to say something?
Nope.
Okay. Seen you click it. I see your face pop up, so I just figured, you know, maybe he wants to pipe in. So, Greg, I got a question for you, and this is kind of maybe a little bit down in the weeds, geeky question. And I love your explanation so far, so I think you can do this. Can you explain, in layman's terms, what is a proxy?
So a proxy, let's see, what's the best way I can describe it? Basically, think of it like a gateway to the internet. So all of your traffic, instead of going straight to the website you want to go to, it goes through our server first. and then our server establishes the connection to the site you actually want to go to. So that way your IP address is protected from whatever endpoint you originally tried to access, and we're able to do all of this extra content analysis in the middle. So it's completely transparent to you. It doesn't use any of your CPU cycles. It all just happens in the cloud, nice and clean. You get protected, and you get clean data back.
That is the best definition I've heard thus far. That's good. So, and that's very easy to understand. So I just wanted people to be aware of, because a lot of people will know what DNS is, or maybe even some people might not. But when we talk about proxy servers and what they are, kind of that, deep level stuff where you're basically you're basically holding the keys to the kingdom, and you got to pass through before you can get the information that you need back to your computer, which obviously protects you in many different ways. So that's good.
Something else to think about there that Greg said, is it doesn't affect the performance on your local LAN. So like one of the big problems with a UTM device is sizing it correctly. Especially in a smaller micro office or even a large environment, depending on how that does. So instead of relying on one box with a processor and memory to do your SSL filtering, decryption, unencryption, you're using all the power of the processor and memory, in sort of in your PC, but not really, because the agent's not doing it. You're sending it up, and then you have the power of the cloud to do all that performance for you. So, all those resources up there are doing it versus this small little metal box that you bought for a couple $100 that's sitting in your rack. Because a lot of the times what I'm finding is I'll go in someplace, a new client, and they'll say, oh, our internet is so slow. And, they might have 50 users, and they've got some firewall device in there that's built for like 10 users or 15 users. That one isn't set up correctly because it's not even licensed to manage that many users. But two, the performance of that particular box can't keep up with the bandwidth or the performance needs of the organization that it's trying to protect. So, that's something else to consider as you're considering Zorus and your whole stack. Make sure you're buying a product or a box, whether it's Zorus or a UTM or whatever security feature you put in. It's going to have some sort of impact on performance. They all do, because they have work to do behind the scenes when you're making a request. But just, where is that performance hit going to affect your organization or the performance of what a end user is trying to do?
Well, I think even from that aspect too, though, John, and a lot of us will use different DNSs than maybe the one that comes with, whatever company we're using for our ISPs, our internet service provider. And we change them because a lot of times there's a heavy impact going through any type of server. If you were to see the route, Greg, correct me if I'm wrong, but if you were to see the route from where your information is going from your computer and jumping all over the internet to get you that information back, I mean, it's amazingly fast for what it actually is doing. It's incredible. And so, and I've said this before, a lot of people out there, some of them know what slow is, most of them don't. They're just kind of like, yeah, as long as it works pretty good. I mean, heck, most people are on their mobile phones going, hey, let me get over here, and that's taking way longer than on a laptop or desktop computer. So
I think you had to grow up in the 90s with the 28.8 to really understand what flow is.
Oh, so yeah, so it's all relevant nowadays. I think, John, is what we were saying too. Is it's just, it is what it is. But it's nice to have that ability to do that out there, and I like this type of product that's going to protect me and have that kind of granular function where you can dig down deep in there and do all the things that you want to do, and hey, block it all and loosen it up over time. That's my motto. Anyways.
All right, so I'm going to forward my support calls to you when we do that, and you'll handle those for the first month.
Well,
okay,
I'll
thank you very much.
John, you could do that, but you might not have any customers left after I deal with them.
That is for sure the truth. Okay.
You're like, that Jeff is a jerk. No, I'm just being real, people. Suck it up and drive on.
No, you're a jerk. You're right.
That's out of the whole conversation, Paco. That's the only thing you come up with.
Really needed. There you go.
All right, we're going to take another quick break. What I'm going to do is I'm going to have everybody here gather up your final thoughts. Anything we have not touched on thus far, let's go ahead and we'll end that out here in a minute. But right now, I want to thank all the people that support this show. And if you'd like to support what we're doing here and bringing you this information, bringing you these vendors, bringing real world scenarios, stories that will help you in your business, I encourage you to go to patreon.com/computer repair podcast. And our newest Patreon supporters, we have Angel Garot, David Smith, Derek Ambigary, and John Amersino. And it's great to have new patrons all the time. Now, what this will get you, it's not just me naming you on the show, although I do that because I feel it's important to call people out and let people know that we appreciate the support. What this will do is it will get you into our super secret Facebook group where you can be safe in a safe environment. Not that Facebook itself is safe, just a safe environment among other techs and peers that will help you in your business without making you feel stupid. Because we don't tolerate any of that. The number one rule we have, if you have no answer to the questions being asked, shut up and move along. We don't want we don't want to go down any rabbit trails, but we have 100, I think we're up to 116 people, John. 116. Can you believe that in like a little over a year?
Jeff, as usual, I have to correct you. It's 117.
Oh.
Thank you very much.
There you go. I was wrong. So
what?
Wait, I was wrong. You won't hear me say that often. But it's nice to have a safe environment where you can ask a question, no matter how basic, no matter how new you are in the business. It doesn't really matter because we've all been there and we understand that. And so we want to help each other. We're not gonna sit there and go, hey, there's plenty of other forums and stuff out there that if you want that type of abuse, go there. They'll call you out and go, hey, stupid, if you don't know how to do that, you should get out of this business. You shouldn't even be doing that. You won't get any of that because I have my bouncers, Mr. Paco LeBron and John Dubinsky, who will kick you out of the group straight away. And no questions asked. They don't even have to ask me. It's like, if you act wrong, boom, you're gone. So that's what we wanted to create, was a safe environment. So I encourage everyone to go to patreon.com/computer repair podcast. And I want to thank all of our Patreon supporters for your continued support. Helps us bring you these shows, keep up on equipment and all that kind of stuff. So definitely appreciate that. All right, so let's go ahead and let's do our final thoughts. What do we want to start with? John, do you have any final thoughts that you'd like that you've been thinking about that we have not covered since you brought us this product?
So you're talking to me?
Yeah, I'm sorry, John D.
Okay.
See,
Again,
I knew
sir,
it. I knew it was going to happen.
I was waiting for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, I'm going to sort of pick on or just sort of bring up the fact that, again, we have the head of marketing and a company CEO giving us their Sunday afternoon to introduce a great product to us. The great team. So I would encourage everybody just to reach out to Zorus and just find out a little bit more about them, find out a little bit more what they're about. Having got to know John and Greg a little bit just from the beginning, they're the kind of guys that they'll just frankly tell you that we don't think Zorus is the right fit. Maybe you should do this. Or, wow, hey, jump on the bandwagon. You're exactly where we need to be. You're the perfect fit for us. Here's how we can help. So, it's one of those vendors like the other ones that we always tried, those community invested vendors. They give us their time. Obviously, they want to make some money and run a business just like us. So, just put all that aside because that's where everybody wants to be. Let's not be ridiculous. But, there also seem to be some honest guys that are really want to do well for themselves and by us. So that's my 2 cents to end the topic.
Awesome. Appreciate that. And John Fazio, any lasting thoughts that you want to talk about?
Yeah, so I have to actually, kind of give you guys the skinny on what you're going to do next. So we have the opportunities to do demonstrations. I just got an email, I'm assuming from one of your listeners that was looking for a demo. I could do that. So shoot me an email, jfazio@zorustech.com. I can also give you a trial period. So if you guys want to kick it around, we can give you a certain time to do that. We could actually have an engineer to set up the product for you. So keep the communication going, but I'm here to do anything we can to get you guys to actually physically get into the system, kick it around. If you want to do it with your clients, that's cool too. But I appreciate just the fact that you guys had us on here, that you have this. One of my big things is just people doing actions, and you guys certainly have an action that I'm here, and you're doing stuff. So it's just a great thing. So I really appreciate that, and hopefully we can maybe come on again once we get that larger product out there for you guys. But we'll keep the communication going, and just want to thank again for having us on here.
Awesome. It was great to have you guys. And Greg, give us your final thoughts, anything we haven't covered or anything that you want to say.
I think John covered most of it. The only thing I would say is if you call up in the next week, we'll get you on for a 30-day trial free, and all you got to do is call up and say the name of the show, and we'll get you in there.
Awesome. 30-day free trial. You can't beat that. So guess what? Get it, kick the tires, do what you need to do to, hey, try it out. Again, if it's either going to be a fit, like these guys have said, or it's not going to be a fit, but you're not going to know that without actually trying the product out.
Here's a little just answer to the chat. The product is priced kind of like an AV product based on number of endpoints you have and all that kind of stuff, and how you're using it, what you got going on. So I don't have a specific answer for that, and I won't put the Zorus guys on the link. But if you just call and talk to John or anybody over there, they'll give you full pricing disclosure and all that on how you're going to use it. So
yeah. It's tiered pricing and it's user based. So I think that's pretty huge too. And we didn't touch any on that either. But considering that you're a user, it could be a user as in, Jane, it could be a user in the marketing department, or it could be a user is, a pizza shop. So being user based has the ability for you guys to flip that over and have more flexibility. But I could actually go over tiered pricing if you want.
Okay, awesome. And as far as, and we also understand from the channel friendly standpoint, obviously we don't want the customers finding out, exactly what we're paying, and because we're going to turn around and make a profit off of this and sell it. So some of that stuff is, again, I think the easiest way to do that is probably just call these guys up, get a demo, and you'll get all the information firsthand. And that's basically the best way to do it, because you're going to get it from the horse's mouth. And no matter if you're listening to the show today or you're listening to the show 10 years down the road, you're going to get the information you need at the time.
Yeah, the reality is it's a few dollars per user, so it's nothing crazy or anything like that.
There you go. Which is, it is normal, right?
Yep.
All right. So I think we have done a lot here. I appreciate you guys coming out today, taking a Sunday afternoon. Not everybody can do that, and we definitely appreciate the time and effort to bringing us your product and service and explaining to us the different things that we need to know about it. And again, it's wonderful to have these conversations to understand new things that are out there, because one thing I learned a long time ago, man, there is a lot of stuff when it comes to IT, and there's new things being innovated all the time. And if you don't have access to be able to figure out what's out there, it's hard, and we're all putting out our fires and doing what we need to do on a daily basis. So having vendors come on here and share what they're doing is completely awesome, and we appreciate it. All right. Come join us live for the Computer Repair Podcast every Sunday at 4 p.m. Eastern over at podnuts.com/CRP Live. Join in on the conversation by hanging out in the chat room. You can send an email to podnuts@podnuts.com, or if you'd like to leave a voicemail, 734-335-1000. We'll play that right next to our lovely voices. I want to thank everyone for listening and subscribing to the show. We'll see you next time on the Computer Repair Podcast.